Welcome to Digital Dominators, the podcast that helps small business owners grow their confidence, sharpen their digital skills, and actually enjoy showing up online. I'm Sooz Young, your host, tech coach, and digital cheerleader, and every week I chat with brilliant experts to bring you practical tips, smart strategies, and the tools and tech to make business easier. From social media marketing to websites, content to confidence, AI to automation, we're breaking it down into simple steps you can actually use. If you're ready to make things simpler and more successful in your digital world, you're in the right place. Let's get stuck in. Hi, and welcome to today's Digital Dominators podcast. I am welcoming onto the session Alexandra Forsyth. Hiya, nice to have you today. So Alex is recognised for an expert in coaching, public speaking, and community building and cybersecurity. And she's based in London, in the UK. She's known for her extensive work with one-to-one client interactions, group sessions, and presentations promoting safe digital practices, which are really essential, as you'll know. So Alexandra offers a selection of coaching packages in career and self-development, and is also a public speaker and cybersecurity leader presenting at conferences in 2025. And I'm just going to name a few of those in a moment. So she's accumulated years of knowledge in various roles, including public speaking and collaborating with different teams, and her contributions to the cybersecurity community include speaking engagements at industry conferences, including TEDx, RSA conference, Pep Talk, publications and prominent journals, including The Guardian, Forbes, and Business Insider. So you can imagine how excited I am to speak to Alexandra today. So welcome, Alex. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. I've got a little bit of a cold. I'm going to preempt, but I'm fine.
I know it's that time, isn't it, where the sniffles can happen. But you're sounding great. So not to worry on the chat that we're going to have today. So I've given you your bio about where you've got to and where you are just now. So what it might be quite good to hear for the listeners is really share your journey into how you got to where you are today, how you started in cybersecurity, what got you inspired to work in this field, and then kind of we'll talk into what you're doing now as well, into your kind of community work and all the conferences and stuff that you're speaking to. We've got tons to speak about, but let the audience know a little bit about you and how you got to where you are today, Alex.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on the podcast. Really appreciate that. And it's a bit of a mouthful, everything that you just mentioned. We were talking before the podcast about how we don't self-indulge. So to hear everything that we've been doing is quite a feeling just to sit back. But yes, I'm Alexandra and I wear many hats, so to speak. I'm quite multifaceted in my skill set. So right at the beginning of my journey, I studied criminology at university. So that was during my bachelor's and my master's. And I was focusing on probation, policing, criminal justice system, so very strategic report writing and presenting a little bit. So I studied criminology, and then during my master's, I studied about the dark web. So I had a module which was focusing on cybersecurity, but it was only around 2 or 3 months. So I didn't really get an insight into what cyber was. I just learned about this part of the World Wide Web where you can sell illicit goods and services. In a nutshell, that is what the dark web is. We now know that a lot of bad actors go on there to sell services as well between themselves. So I learned about them. And then after my master's, it was the COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately. And I was working in hospitality at the time, and I've worked in hospitality all my life, really. So I couldn't go to work, and I was at home. And I thought, well, I've just learned a little bit about the dark web. Now, maybe I should go and explore what cybersecurity actually is. And I had around 6 or 7 months where I didn't have anything to do. So I took some courses online, and it was very foundational, just cybersecurity frameworks, open source tools you can use online. Nothing really relating to threat intelligence. So that is my primary role that I have been doing for years and years. But at the beginning, I was just applying for entry level cybersecurity roles. That was all I really knew about. And I faced a lot of rejection. I talk about this in every interview that I do or every conference that I go to. I always say in the beginning, I really faced a lot of rejection getting a role because I didn't have the background and I didn't necessarily have the knowledge that I needed. And it's not that companies couldn't train me up. I know that a lot of companies are willing, but I guess something just wasn't feeling right. So yeah, I faced a lot of rejection, but then one company, which was a startup, decided to take a chance on me and they gave me a role in threat intelligence. And I was asked if I knew anything about threat intelligence. And I said, no, I don't know anything about this role. So they taught me everything that I need to know in 12 months. And threat intelligence, it's all about working with clients to, we can't preempt what's going to happen in the future relating to cybercrime, but what we can do is have a look at the assets, the policies in place, their business model, and work out how a threat actor might try and target. And also I do a lot of industry research and I have worked with retailers and fashion clients globally for years. And one thing that I'm able to do is have a look at their industry and kind of map out, well, where would a threat actor target? So could that be during their point of sale, which could be online, e-commerce or in store, through credit card skimming or different types of malware. So it's being able to kind of track activity over a long time and track threat actor campaigns. In the last 12 months, if there's a spike, we could preempt that maybe the client could face more targeting than they would prior to that. So it's just all about trying to work with the client, preempt, look at the risks, and help protect them really as an organization. So after I worked for the startup for 12 months, I moved to London. I moved here in the summer of 2022, and I've been doing threat intelligence for 4 years now. But in between that time, yeah, London is great for networking, it's great for building a community, it's great for public speaking. So I dabbled in a lot of different areas, specifically in the last 2 years, specifically around public speaking and the community aspect. And as you mentioned, I delivered a TEDx last year in October, and my topic was community. So if you do watch it, it's nothing relating to cyber. I don't talk about my role at all. I really just talk about what community means to me and how I've experienced it around me in certain situations. There's one experience that I had when I went to Cambridge for the day, and when I was coming back on the train stopped moving because there was a faulty power outage or something like that. And there were a lot of us in the carriage. None of us knew each other. And then all of a sudden we're talking, we're coming together, we're trying to find a solution on how to get home. And that experience will stay with me forever because it just shows the power of community and times of uncertainty. And I think we're all facing that a little bit geopolitically at the minute. So it really is about coming together, and the TEDx meant so much to me, and I'll never forget doing that. And the same with the public speaking as well. And then also after, so like I say, worked in threat intelligence for 4 years consulting, and then now I'm heading into offering more kind of self-development coaching. So for me, because I had quite a hard time coming into the industry, I've never really forgotten that, and I've always tried to work with people to help them understand a little bit more about cybersecurity, early careers. If they want to learn more, they can come and I can coach them in how to get them prepped up, really, how to build your personal brand, how to do more public speaking, how to present yourself well, elevator pitch, and just getting people where they want to be in life. I always say you get to be the decider, you really get to be the curator of your life, and you can't underestimate that, because as soon as you open that door, I mean, opportunities are endless, really. You just have to want it, and it does take a lot of hard work. And if you want a fruitful career in cyber, you can have it, but it's got to come from you first. So a lot's going on.
There is so much to talk about from what you've shared there, even more from the introduction that we had there as well. But I'd just like to talk about a couple of things that you mentioned there to start off with. So talk to me about how you mentioned there that you'd worked in hospitality and then you moved into obviously COVID-19 hit and then having to work out what's next if hospitality is there. But I've got a feeling something that maybe the hospitality role really maybe started that point of community based and being around. So is there any connection or yeah, is there any connection there with what you've done previously to then maybe what you're doing now with the community and the support and the one-to-one?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, with hospitality, if I could do hospitality now, I'd probably go back at some point. I absolutely loved my time, and I did a lot of waitressing, boostering, working behind the bar. I did every role within hospitality, and I think the team that you cultivate behind you, the collaboration, it's unmatched, and you're like a family, and you spend time with each other outside of work. You spend a lot of time with each other in house, and it's just, yeah, it's fantastic for my formative years, and just understanding how to communicate with customers as well. The customer isn't necessarily always right, even though we think that might be the case, but it's about working with the customer, making sure that they have everything that they need, making sure that they're attended to, and it really helps build up your skill set in public speaking in a way, because you're constantly having to talk, constantly having to explain the menu or explain yourself, being able to talk to your manager in a way, and you can still get promoted in hospitality right up to a managerial role. So you have to be hardworking the same way you do in any industry. So I think it's unmatched to have been able to start in hospitality and then going through to consulting. I very much do live a life of service. I really enjoy helping others. And I thought that was a detriment to myself in my younger years, but now actually you can use it for good. When I talk to clients, I want to build trust with them. I want to build a rapport. I want them to understand that, it's not just monetary value, but we want that relationship, and we want to make sure that they're protected in the cybersecurity realm in exactly the same way in hospitality, making sure that they have their food on time. Or I used to work in a hotel, so making sure that they're able to go up to their room at a certain time, and that they have the amenities that they want. So there are definitely transferable skills that I think along the way that you can apply. And again, going back to university, working with others, doing projects and practicing your public speaking and writing reports, and the strategic elements. So that strategic again took with me to the consulting side, because I'd been doing it for so long during education. So all along the way, and you might not be able to piece that together in the beginning, but actually talking to you now, I'm able to see, yeah, there's definitely links there.
That's what I like to think about. No matter what stage that people are at in their journey, whether they're just in their early stages or they're a little bit more experienced by getting lots of different roles, or swerving their career in a different way, it's those skills that you gain, not just the technical skills, like you learned about the dark web that then led into you learning more about threat intelligence and moving more into those types of roles, but it was the essential skills of you teamwork, communication, collaborating, problem solving, which you probably would have to do consistently as in hospitality, because something would go wrong all the time. I understand that from working in hospitality and retail in my younger years as well. So I can, it's about, for me, it's about people recognizing those skills and how you can use those skills to help you where you want to go in your life. And so for you, it's moving into the public speaking and the support based for helping people in their roles. And I suppose there's a little bit there. Do you want to explain about what that experience was like when you were starting to look for jobs, with specifically like in this kind of cybersecurity? Because people would assume it's a very male orientated work environment, and I know as both as females within the tech industry, it's something that we're trying to showcase that that's not always the case. Do you want to talk a little bit about that for anybody that's listening?
Yeah, it's so interesting because threat intelligence is actually quite female orientated, and I've always worked with a lot of females, and very much, even if I think about my first startup company, around 20 to 25 of us. So it's a very small knit team, and we'd have half and half, females and males. And then when I moved to London, and I again worked for another startup, and then through to a big consultancy company, it was definitely females and males. I never felt that I was working in a male dominated industry, which has always felt quite inviting to me as well. So I think that's great. And like you say, we're constantly trying to make sure that we're filling the gap as much as possible, because there are different traits that we can bring in. I think from maybe a female point of view, it's the emotional intelligence we can bring in. Not to say that males can't, I'm very much aware that we can, but there are definitely different traits that we can bring to the table and work together. And then I've never had experiences where I haven't been able to do that, which is really nice. I've always said, although it feels really hard to come into the industry, or at least from my experiences, I found it really difficult because I didn't have a background. I didn't necessarily have the qualifications. I really did have to do a lot of self-taught study, and I had to push to get the role. Again, I'll never forget that experience. But once you're in the industry, you can pivot, you can go on and there are so many different roles in cyber. I mean, threat intelligence is just one branch, but you could go and do security operations, you could go and do incident response or threat hunting or threat management or marketing in cybersecurity or business as well. So there are just so many, cybersecurity is just opening up so much now, definitely more so than even 4 years ago when I first came in. And so if you want a career, as soon as you're inside the industry, there's so many opportunities there. And I feel that we are such a warm community as well. Everybody that I meet in cyber, I never have a bad experience. Everybody's so open to talking and so open to sharing their knowledge as well. So yeah, I think it's fantastic.
I think you've nailed something there, because cybersecurity is so important and people don't talk about it enough. They're almost afraid of it. So to hear that the people that are working in the industry are focused on knowledge sharing and upskilling and helping people to develop that mindset, to be aware, to have that cyber awareness, is super important. So let's talk about that from two different points of view. So cyber awareness or cybersecurity for individuals, and then we'll talk about it from a business point of view. So you mentioned you work for a startup. So how does that work from the early stages of a business into kind of when the startup becomes bigger, into a scale up? What kind of things do you need to put in place? But let's start with individuals. How can we build more cyber awareness in our day-to-day lives and interactions?
I think building cybersecurity awareness, I think the word awareness is always a good place to start. You know, sometimes when I go networking, for example, in London, I don't just go to cybersecurity events, I go to everything. Sometimes I'll just go to a networking event, which is a coffee morning. Nobody is there that's working in cyber. They might be working, like I say, marketing, business, or finance, and just have a conversation. I'll just talk to them. We'll ask each other what we do for a living. I'll say cybersecurity, and they'll say, "Oh, that's interesting. Is that data? Is that technical?" And I'll say, "Well, it doesn't have to be. It can be strategic, and you can read a report and understand a little bit more about cybersecurity." So, on an individual level, actually, the awareness part is just maybe Googling sometimes cybersecurity fundamentals, keeping up with the news, and just understanding a little bit more about the landscape, what's going on before we go technical and before we start thinking about measures that we can put in place to protect your devices, protect your software, your laptops, whatever it is. Let's just start base level with just understanding a little bit more about what cybersecurity is. I think it's really important. But it's definitely word of mouth. I think conversations and having the experts, so to speak, come in and just talk to members of the public. I mean, I love talking to people. I'm always on the tube or on the bus or when I'm out and about. I think it's more inviting that way, to have somebody just have a normal conversation about it, rather than come in and say, well, this is cybersecurity, this is what you need to do. 'Cause like you say, it can feel a little bit off-putting, it can feel a little bit scarcity. Oh, what is this big bad thing? And well, actually it's not, and it's quite exciting.
Yeah, I think the people imagine, we teach this in our cybersecurity course, it's the mindset of a hacker. So we talk about, everybody imagines a hacker or a cyber attacker to be in a room that's dark with their hood up, and it's quite threatening. And I suppose that's what the media and the film industry is kind of presented in that sort of way. But it's really simple things that just like checking your email sender address, just checking if that's the right way, logging in separately rather than logging in via a link that comes. So those little things. I liked how you mentioned there, it's just all about conversations, and it's about, again, for you, going back to that community, back to that conversation, back to that skill of listening and, and communicating effectively to kind of understand where other people are coming from. Yeah.
I think, yeah, and like you say, listening skills are very important. It's the same with what we do with clients. We'd rather listen first, and then we will build out processes for you based on what you said, rather than talk to you. We know what we know, and we're not going anywhere. So now it's time to listen to other people. And it's the same with, just members of the public that have no real idea about cyber. Just listen to what they have to say. If they're not, for example, I'll ask people, you use the same password for every single account? It's a very standard question. I think in cyber we always do think about this thing. A lot of people say yes, they have no password manager, or they're not really sure the ways to go around it. And I'd rather just listen to them for 20-30 minutes about their problems, and then I can go away, have a think, maybe take down their email or drop them a line, and then from there you can help. You don't need to feel that we need to start implementing something right now. But yeah, the sooner the better.
I think you've nailed something there when it comes to what to do as a business owner as well, because the best thing that you can do as a business owner is sit and listen to your ideal customers' problems. Just sit, and you said there, I love sitting listening to people and coming up with all of the problems and then sitting on it and then coming up with solutions for them. And that's really just, no matter what business that you're in, that's really just a great way to think about how to help and support people that you're working with. But let's talk a little bit more about business owners as well there. So what would you recommend for business owners to think about for their own cybersecurity or awareness? Again, that startup space that you worked in, was there any shares that you can give to people?
I think, God, it's such a tough question. Because I've worked across the board. I've worked with startups. I've worked with companies who have no cybersecurity at all in place, and they're just, sometimes they're not just up and coming. They are big organizations. They just don't really have cyber. It's not that it's an afterthought. They are thinking about it, but it is in terms of funding, finding the right tooling, finding the right resources. So I think one thing I would recommend in cybersecurity is try and work with experts to figure out what does your organization look like in terms of your assets, your data, your supply chain, just writing down what you already have in place, and also your teams involved as well. Do you have any cybersecurity teams in place? Do you need to invest in security operations? Do you need to invest in threat intelligence? Do you need to invest in research? What do you actually need as an organization to protect you? What's vulnerable? What's exposed? And we can go through that process. But it is a journey, I must admit, to get somebody to a stage where they have full cybersecurity in place, and it will consistently be a journey. It could take a year to really start putting in the mechanisms. But obviously in TI, we use a lot of tooling to help monitor clients' environment, and we're constantly checking every day to make sure that there aren't any vulnerabilities, reporting everything back and making sure their whole environment's protected. So I would definitely say for a company just starting out, figuring out who you are as a company, what assets you have, what does your supply chain look like? And if you can't figure that out and you're not sure, then it is definitely bringing in people that can help you as soon as possible. It doesn't have to be a big team to come in. It could be 1, 2, or 3 people, consultants to come in and just have a conversation with you. Sometimes before you're even doing anything, it could be just having someone deliver a presentation in cyber. This is what cybersecurity looks like. This is the current landscape. Map it to your industry or map it to your organization, and then we can start implementing controls, start looking at the policies, and start figuring out what can we do to help protect you. But it's definitely a process, and it goes back to the listening, having the open conversations at the beginning, listening to the requirements, and then going from there.
Yeah, I think the conversation piece there is not being afraid to have those conversations and not be afraid to think about that you may need to implement new ways of working and implement new processes within the business. And it's a positive thing. It's a positive for you and your customers, and it builds more trust, would you say, with the customers by having cyber awareness and cybersecurity set up within the business. So thinking it is a fundamental building block of a business to have these things in place.
Definitely. I think all organizations need some form of cybersecurity, whether it's small, whether it's a big team, like I say, having an in-house team, or you externally contract a team to come in and help protect your environment as an organization. But it's definitely, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, it really needs to be a fundamental of every single organization out there as well. I've lost my train of thought. There was something else I was going to say.
It will come back. It will come back to
me.
Do you think that every company should provide training of sorts to their team members around cybersecurity? Do you think that should be mandatory or compliant in some sort of way?
So I think yes, it should be mandatory. I have actually spoken to half a dozen employees in passing, and they've said that they've received fundamental training in cybersecurity. It's similar to Cyber Essentials. They kind of go online and they listen to training videos, but there's no kind of interaction element. So they're just watching the videos or maybe reading a couple of reports, whatever the resources are that are being offered out. But actually, I think it would be quite nice. It could be similar to a tabletop exercise and actually get people in the rooms. So that employees, you could have half a dozen different tables, 50 to 100 employees at a time maybe, and make it collaborative. So offer them simulate real world examples of a cyber attack. What does each team do? HR, TI, marketing, whatever the teams are within the company, what can each do to help protect themselves as well? So I think maybe the training, not to say it's outdated, but I think that we could make it more adaptable and to the current climate in terms of if they want more people in the office now, then maybe we should be thinking about, well, making it more of a collaborative process when it comes to the cybersecurity training. But I think it is valuable. I think the training that's out there is still very useful, but I think more in person, but less of it being too heavily digital. Don't just have an employee sat there for 4 or 5 hours when they're first onboarded watching some training, meet the team and maybe have a team exercise together. It will take a little bit more work and it is a little bit more resourcing, but in the end it's more beneficial really, because they'll have a better understanding. They might enjoy it. We love cyber because we work in it, and God, I could talk about it forever. I love it so much, but
Yeah.
employees could get to the stage where they think, well, actually, this doesn't sound too bad. So now that they've recommended that I do that, I will.
Mm-hmm. And just as a shameless plug there, that's what we do in our cybersecurity training sessions, is that they are built on interactions. So we have a game where we have our attendees pretend that they're a hacker. So we give them some criteria, we give them the person that they're going to hack, and they've got to come up with an idea of a way to hack that person after they've learned ways that people can be hacked. So it's a really collaborative and a fun learning experience, because what you'll find is that the different groups or the different team members across different departments are then discussing what that's like in their environment and what that experience may be, because it is about the supply chain. It is about how all the things connect together. And you'll know this from working in the corporate sphere as well. Teams are bad at talking to each other and collaborating around what is working for them and may not work for them. And it tends to be based because of a lack of teamwork and a lack of communication and collaboration. So providing opportunities and spaces and educating them and understanding what that's like in other departments' point of view can really help the business and the employees think that they've got a mindset based upon protecting themselves, protecting the business, and understanding their colleagues in other ways as well. So I really love that you mentioned that there, Alex, and that's really important for businesses too as well. So thank you for that. Let's talk
It
a little.
did.
Sorry, on you
I
go.
was only going to say,
Mm-hmm.
no, I was only going to say, I remembered my point from earlier when you said it's kind of the hackers they have a hoodie on and they're in the basement, and script kiddies as well, we call them.
What did
Obviously,
you call them? What was that?
it's script kiddies or
Script kiddies. That's brand new for me.
something like that. But it reminds me of a trend that we're seeing now, and I've seen in the news ransomware groups, for example, you're actually able to see the person behind it. We've had a few cases of notorious groups where they have a mask. They're just humans. They're just human beings. They are carrying out these very widespread financial crimes against big organizations for monetary value, but they are just human beings. So actually being able to lift the lid off that a little bit is fundamental as well.
Yeah, just showcasing that it can be absolutely anyone, anywhere.
It's always quite frightening, really. Sometimes when it's families that are together and they're working, and there's 3 or 4 of them, you think, oh my God. Yeah.
And I think it's just making it people know that it can happen to anyone, anywhere, and just have your due diligence about you. Just the awareness aspect there as well. Right, let's talk a little bit more about where you see cybersecurity going, because you mentioned it a little bit as well over the next 5 to 10 years. And I know that you are speaking at a few conferences this year. And the next one, I think the next one's up in Edinburgh, is that right? I know you may be listening to this at any time, but you're speaking at a big cyber event in Edinburgh. So talk to me a little bit about where are we going the next 5 to 10 years? How is that going to help people that are coming along to hear you speak? All of these things.
Yeah, so I think I'm trying to focus on strategies at the minute for, say, IT professionals and leaders, and just kind of reflecting on my role, what I've done over the past few years. I'll be bringing into the presentation, so TI as a whole, what is threat intelligence, and kind of open source, using different tooling to help monitor clients' environments. But one trend that we are seeing definitely this year and into the future, there is more emphasis on resilience. So it is about cyber hygiene. We want to make sure we're patching the vulnerabilities, but the resilience, it's relating to the awareness more and more. And we're seeing a lot of investment being made into different tooling, but there's also tooling fatigue where you're investing too much and you have 30 or 40 different tools, but you don't know how to use any of them because you don't have the experts coming in, say threat intelligence, for example, to
And
tell
they
you
don't
that
talk to each other.
there's the lack of communication, like you say, and then you have a CISO saying, well, we've spent all this money and we're still not protected, so what do we do? So I'm trying to think to myself, well, how can we combat that in terms of strategy? And again, as I said before, it is about bringing in one or two people from TI and then matching them up with security operations, because I've worked with all teams. So threat intelligence is very, very collaborative. When we monitor a threat actor, for example, we'll look at the IOCs, so the indicators of compromise. That could be a domain that's been registered by that threat actor to create a phishing web page to mimic the client. We'll look at that IOC and we'll send it across to security operations. Threat hunting teams can do use case development and actually look at how that client might be targeted in the future. So it's very, very collaborative, and I don't think organizations know about that enough, really. I think they just think, well, TI, then you have research, then you have security operations, but we all work together. And I've worked with teams where we've communicated all day, every day, and it's been fantastic. And the client's really protected, and you get a lot of value out of that. So I'm trying to think about the strategies because, like I say, with the tooling fatigue, how can we combat that? The resilience aspect, more awareness through public speaking conferences, etc. But then obviously there's all this conversation about AI and definitely relating to shadow AI this year. I think maybe last year, but there's more emphasis on it this year in terms of employees using open source AI. So actually, they don't need to download anything. They can just type something into their browser and use an AI. So how do you monitor that in terms of compliance and data privacy for the organization? There's a lot of conversations going on around
It's the personal devices versus the company devices. How do you change the behavioral mindset of the employees that are used to interacting on a day-by-day basis with their own technology, then within the work environment using those same learned skills that they've whether or not they're positive or negative skills into their work environment. So there is a huge conversation piece just around data compliance, how AI is integrated, how that impacts with cybersecurity, and the data that you're feeding into these learning models in some way, these language models.
It makes me wonder whether now we've said if we could offer training out to employees that is more interactive, that is collaborative and tabletop, get them in person, you could incorporate AI into that now and actually just say, well, these are the fundamentals. This is how it can be exploited through data poisoning, LLMs trying to extract the data and biases surrounding it. And because because the employees would maybe enjoy learning a bit more about cybersecurity in that way, you teach them about AI, that could benefit as well.
Yeah, and that's what I like to think. It's not just about the one aspect of technology, they integrate with each other. So as we've mentioned there, cybersecurity is based off the data that the company provides and puts itself out there that can be compromised in some sort of way. And now that we're feeding these AI tools more data about the company, where's the compliance and the ethical and legal aspect of that? I mean, we're not going to talk about ethical and legal on this podcast because we can go on forever, especially around the differences of what's happening across the world, what's happening in Europe and the UK. And I know there's difference even between England and Scotland and what's happening around data and AI, policies. But we won't go there. We won't go there. Let's talk a little.
There's too much going on, if I'm honest, when it comes to regulations. And I think the UK is I was reading this morning about cybersecurity standards or something that they brought in. It's voluntary, but it's a way to kind of monitor and track the assets. So I was reading up a little bit, but I need to have a bit more of insights into what's going on there, because it seems the regulations are just coming out twofold this year, definitely relating to AI. We're trying to find solutions, but can organizations implement everything that we're putting forward as well? We have to remember that it's not so much about coming up with solutions, but can organizations actually implement these solutions? Is it viable? So that's another area.
If people don't see this as income generating as well for their business, it's difficult because it is tough times for businesses too. So how do they use the tools effectively to help them in generate, but also not be compromised in some sort of way. So the technology is constantly evolving and the policies around it all too. So there's part of it there. I find this myself. How do you keep yourself up to date and the information that's coming out around cybersecurity and the other aspects of what you're involved in within the technology world? How do you keep yourself up to date?
That's a very, very good question.
I get asked that, and I'm always like, it's constant. It's constant to try and keep yourself up to date.
I have different feeds coming in. I set my feeds up where I'll just get streams and streams of news. I filter out some of it. I don't read absolutely everything. I think with cybersecurity, and I think because we've worked in the field for so many years now, I don't know, I guess I don't want to say I look at what's most important, but I do keep a tab on geopolitics, what's taking place currently. Cybersecurity, I am looking more at regulations for this year, what's going to be brought in, AI, I'm keeping on top of. I think it's just, like you say, it's constant. I, I mean, I would say just try not to get overwhelmed with the resources. Maybe pick one area. So if you're new to cybersecurity and you think, right, I want to learn everything there is about AI, just pick that. I mean, because I used to work for a lot of retail and fashion clients, I would really just focus on that industry. So I'd be aware of, say, financial services. I'd be aware of aviation, other industries, because cybercrime obviously is universal across the industry. So ransomware impacts industries in similar ways, data breaches, supply chain compromise. But so I'd say if you wanted to just focus on one industry as well, that might be beneficial because that's what I've done in the past. But yeah, my tips aren't going to be great because it's constant 24/7 every day of the week. It's just seeing what's out there.
Curation is the way, isn't it? And I found that my resources seem to tend to share similar information as well. So it's through broadcasts, it's through alerts that I get. It's daily, multiple, and it's allocating myself the time just to keep on top of everything, making sure I curate my feeds wherever I'm spending my time online as well to make sure that I'm getting the right information so that I can affect, because my role is to help and support businesses to provide them with the right information. So I want to make sure that it's curated in the right way. So I don't have the right answer to that as well when I get asked that question. It's just working out where you want to go. And I liked the niche down aspect that you mentioned there as well. So focusing on a specific area, especially if you're in the early stages of your career.
Also, the only other thing I would mention is I've had a few emails come through. Companies have released their cybersecurity threat landscape for the year. So in that threat landscape, it will give you different pieces of information, ransomware groups, data breaches, compromise. It will just give you a breakdown of different types of malware. So if you are actually looking to have a bit more of a holistic approach and you can't read 30 or 40 different articles, but you could read maybe 2 or 3 threat landscape reports, they will be lengthy. I'd say about 40 to 60 pages sometimes with the graphics, but it will give you an entire insight. So maybe spending a little bit of time doing that, because obviously in the threat intelligence space, we've been looking at the threat landscapes. You can niche down there as well.
Yeah, I find
so just finding 1 or 2 reports.
Yeah, I find that I got those reports from attending conferences. So by attending conferences annually, and building relationships with the different types and styles of organizations that are there, from this startup, scale up, all the way through to huge conglomerates, it is getting utilizing their tools and resources, their investment that they've had to be able to get that industry reports that are usually sent to you. So I generally will be sent weekly reports from these companies that have done all of that hard work, where you can pull the information from and then also build those connections in that way. So talk to me about your experience with conferences. Now that you're a speaker at conferences, talk to me about what that's like.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, when I moved to London, I never spoke at any conferences. I didn't know anybody either in the cyberspace really. So I like you say, going to conferences can be a really good conversation starter, because you can go and it's not just about listening to the speakers, but there are quite a few exhibitors. So you can go around and speak to people about their new technology. And I used to do that for retail. So I went to the retail technology show. There's half a dozen different retail conferences just in London. And I used to just go and speak to people, like you say, about the trends, what are they currently coming up with, and then eventually going into the speaker space. But I took my time with it. And I made sure that I was in a position where I actually had something to say as well, because sometimes when you're listening to a speaker, you want to make sure that the information that they're offering is valuable. And I always want to make sure that my audience is attended to. And I try and remove the jargon as well. And it will depend if I'm talking to IT professionals or CISOs. If it's CISOs, I might go more strategic, high overview, statistics, trends, rather than go deep dive IT professionals. Let's look at the vulnerabilities. Let's look at the data. I don't need to do that necessarily. So it's all about attending to the audience, definitely,
Yeah.
for that.
Know your audience and speak towards your audience there as well. So yes, connecting with individuals and building your network is super important no matter what stage that you're at as well. I do
And your
think,
personal brand.
yeah, you mentioned the
As
personal
well is
brand
huge.
there earlier on as well. So talk to me about that, and also I want to start talking about your TEDx, because I know I want to move away from how you got into your TEDx and speaking purely about community. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, to just on the personal branding side
Mm-hmm.
of things, I mean, I find sometimes when I talk to people about building their personal brand, they're looking for short-term wins. They want to wake up overnight and have all of these connections and all of these collaborations and partnerships. It's really long term. I mean, my personal brand, I mean, I say it's lifelong, really. You're building your personal brand right when you're born, and who you are and your traits and how you grow and develop. But my personal brand, it's taken me a few years, and like say going to conferences, just networking with people, putting content out online. LinkedIn, I think, is a fantastic source. It's not as saturated right now, and compared to other social media platforms, I think if you want, definitely in the business space, consulting and client space, if you want collaborations, I think it's an absolutely instrumental platform to be on, and it feels very freeing just to put your content out there. And everybody's really nice on the LinkedIn platform, to be honest. There's people comment and they'll ask you more information. And definitely for cybersecurity, I've written blogs and I used to just put the blogs out last year. I haven't put any out recently. So just on that point, if you're wanting to start out, I'd say maybe just a couple of posts a week and then go to one or two conferences a month or every other month and just start networking. And it's a great opportunity to introduce yourself, practice your elevator pitch. Who are you? What do you do? What are you passionate about? And then if you're looking for a new career, you're going through the interview process, you're already halfway there because you're confident and ready to talk about yourself.
And I think the conversation piece is super important in the age of digital, because I'm sure you've experienced this and that you're seeing this as well, is that there's a generation that doesn't talk very much now, and they're able to talk via online communications, however face to face interactions. So putting yourself out there, almost stepping into that environment, is getting social,
It's hard.
right?
Yeah.
It's hard. However, it has huge
Mm.
uh, prospects. There's huge ways that you can get connections to improve your career, to be seen and recognized. And it is not about putting yourself out there as something different than who you are. It's your uniqueness and it's your humanness that I think is going to make you more, people can align with you more in that way,
Yeah.
in this kind of digital age, I think.
Yeah, well, we met, didn't we, really digitally? I mean, we haven't seen each other in person, but hopefully we will just this year. But we met through another organization online and started talking, and then, here we are on the podcast. So yeah, never underestimate both the digital and in person as well. Definitely try and, I mean, I love an in-person interaction. I love talking to people, and like you say, conferences are renowned. I mean, you can go to a conference for 2 days and walk away with just having met 100 people. It's so easy. But if you are just starting out, and I used to be really introverted before I came to London, I always talk about it because although I'm quite extroverted now, that's not how I was. And I didn't go to networking events every single week. I think I picked possibly 3 or 4 a month. That was it. And I really started small and then just loved it so much. And over time, enjoy being around people now. But yeah, I definitely say start small, and just to avoid being overwhelmed and burnout, because that's the worst case.
Yeah, it's making give I talk about it, it's like you've got to give yourself that space as well. So yes, it is important to build your brand, but you also need to replenish yourself so that you're
Yeah.
you're able to be yourself in that space as well. Is that what you talked about on your TEDx talk? Talk to me about your TEDx talk?
Yeah, it feels like such a long time ago that
I know, but I love it. I love a
came out. I
TEDx talk, so I'm
know.
so
And
curious to
obviously,
learn about it.
yeah, so I was meant to be volunteering. I'd always said to myself, kind of on my bucket list last year, I'd love to do a TEDx this year in 2025. But as part of the process to volunteer, you needed to speak to the organizer, just have a general conversation about the TEDx and your aspirations to get involved. We were talking, and I said what I did in cybersecurity, and I'd really love to do a TEDx at some point in the future. And there just so happened to be a spot available. So I decided, when it's now or never, I might as well just do it. And I didn't really know I knew I wanted to do something about people. I didn't know it was community specifically, and I tampered with a few different topics. I can't remember what they were now, but I just started to experience community, and I guess I'd already been doing a lot of networking up until that point. Came up with the topic probably summer last year, 2024, and then I just started to just experience community all around me. And like I say, that experience that I mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast in Cambridge. And then after that, I've been to London Fashion Week a couple of times because I work with clients in that space. So it's nice to just go to events and understand fashion a bit more. And really, when I'm looking at an industry, it's not always about cyber, it's about economics, the business side. So I like to understand what else is going on. I went there, very inviting community. They have just built this kind of ecosystem of emerging talent and then industry professionals all together, and it was all encompassing and it was fantastic. Yeah, I think London is the hub as well, really, if you're wanting to get involved in a community, build your own. I think opportunities are endless here, and I just spoke about that in the TEDx really, and then got a little bit emotional at the end, and I put it back on the audience and I said, I believe in you, because you never know, that could be the first time somebody's heard that in the room. As sad as it could be. And I just want people to understand that in order to build a community or get involved, you need to remain open and offer yourself and decide, who do I need to become in order to help other people. And that's obviously, my mission is to help people as much as I can, because I didn't have a mentor or coach to begin with. It was very much me going solo, and it was really hard. And although I wouldn't change anything, not everybody wants to go through a similar process like that, or should have to, or need to. So it's just all about us coming together and helping.
And I think you're so brave, and I hope that you're proud of yourself for all the things that you've shared already, which I didn't know, but your ability to put yourself in situations that are hard and put yourself in situations that are about growth, that are about self-development, that are pushing yourself forward. You mentioned that you were an introvert before you came to London, and so you've really pushed and worked hard and developed on that self development. And that's what you're doing now. Is that right, Alex?
Yeah, so I mean, now obviously having spent so much time in kind of the corporate world, now I've been moving into more of the self-development coaching. So it's career and self-development coaching. The idea is I'm offering kind of boot camp / long term, and people come to me and they might want to pivot into cyber from an entirely different industry, or they might be solely focused on getting a role in cybersecurity. So the idea is helping them understand a little bit more what is cybersecurity, but also what are their values and mission inside themselves. It's the first thing I do with anybody that I'm working with. Take away kind of the role and the interview process and everything that can feel quite overwhelming, and let's just focus on you as a person. What are your goals in life? Do you want to travel? Do you want to work remotely? What are your values as a person? Are you authentic? Do you mean what you say? Do you say what you mean? What's your long-term aspirations just in life? Let's write all of that down, and then we can start building a role around that, because there's a role for everything. So it's just about working out. It's just about helping other people just see what I see, and that is a lot of potential.
So you offer coaching services as part of that. Talk me through what your coaching services do, Alex.
Yeah, so the coaching, as I say, it's kind of a 6-week boot camp where they'll come in, we'll talk about your values, your goals, we'll get you prepped up for the interview, going through that process. And then long-term coaching really is, it can be for anything. It can be if you're lacking in confidence, self-esteem, you want help on your mindset, public speaking, personal brand. I really try not to focus too much on one thing, because obviously my skills are so broad as well. I've dipped into so many areas over the years that now I can offer the coaching for just pretty much anything that you'd want. I'd figure out a way to help you. And with coaching, it's slightly different to mentoring. you would still have to come to the solution by yourself. It's not me making decisions for you. I can give you resources and I can be a sounding board, but ultimately I want you to drive the sessions and drive your life.
Yeah.
So it's like I say, it's just helping people to see you can have anything, you can be anybody that you want, and it's good to want a better life.
Oh, 100%. And that's very empowering. And I hope that people will come to you to get that same empowerment that you've taken in your life to be able to direct it. As you said, what was it you said at the beginning? It's like you're the steerer of your own path. It's almost like you're the captain of your own ship almost
Yeah,
in
you're
some
the
sort of way. You can design your
yeah
own life.
captain of your ship, definitely, but curator of your life.
Curator of your life, that was it. So
And
no one's going to
I
give it
think
to you. You have to do it yourself.
you have to do it yourself, but again, going back to community, don't ever feel like you're on your own. So I think for a few months when I moved to London, because I didn't know anybody, I thought, God, I feel really lonely. And I think that's a topic in itself, which we don't talk about enough. And just moving to an entirely new city. I'm from a small town anyway in the West Midlands. So coming to this big city, don't know anybody. I moved for work, which was great because I had colleagues who I could talk to. But on the whole, I didn't have anybody. So I really had to build a community around me. And I guess going back to the TEDx, that's where the inspiration came from because I had to do it from the ground up and it took me a couple of years. Just understand that you're never alone and there are people around you that can help. But ultimately, it is a bit of hard work, and I run a tight ship myself, so I can't negate that and say that it's not because it is. But the rewards and the end goal is the career that you want. It's the life that you deserve, and anything's possible.
Yeah. Don't let opportunities pass you by. You have to put yourself in situations that are tough and difficult.
Yeah,
But one thing I find difficult myself is to reflect on those difficult experiences that you put yourself in and really give yourself that credit of what you've done and where you've been. And I hope that that's something that you're doing yourself for all the work that you've done in such a short period of time as
I
well.
never do. We've spoken about this. I never self-indulge. I'm not one to do it at all. I'm very much kind of go, 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 what's next? But obviously, as I said at the beginning, I've got a bit of a cold at the minute. So I will be taking your advice and taking a bit of a step back. But yeah, definitely reflecting on the journey because that is what it is. You know, we're telling our stories through our experiences, through everyday life. There's no dress rehearsal, so to speak. This is it, really. So it's just making making what we can of it and being optimistic and, as you say, not letting opportunities pass us by and realizing that if you really want something but it turns out there could be something better along the way. So what's the saying? If somebody says no to you, go and find your yes because it doesn't mean the end. And it's just having a little bit more optimism to life in general.
It's being okay with failure. I'm finding as well is that failures are
Yeah,
opportunities in a way. Um, we can be really, really passionate about where we want to go or what we want to do and how that's going to be there, how we're going to get that process to be able to be there. But it sometimes doesn't work like that, and it is through the network and the community and through the opportunities that you put yourself in that can help and offer more spaces for you. So
I
what's
think
next
definitely
for you as well? What's next for you, Alex?
the only other thing I would say is
Mm-hmm.
going back to the failure bit that you mentioned. You know, when I reflect on my journey into cyber, a lot of rejection, some might say a bit of failure then not to be able to get a role as soon as I wanted, and people telling me, well, is this the right path that you should go down because you don't have the credentials? So I think also it goes back to understanding who you are as a person, having the self belief to know that, well, if I want something, I can achieve it. It might take a little bit longer, but again, the end result will be what I want. So just never giving up on yourself, really, just and drowning out the outside noise because you don't need to listen to it.
Yeah. Um, follow one course until successful, as Robert Kiyosaki says in the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, isn't it? Focus. So
Yeah.
tell me, what's next for you, Alex? What's on the plans for you this year, 5 years? Have you got? Are you just letting things come as they come, or have you got
I,
a
I,
plan, a little bit of what's happening? Because I know you've just moved out of different roles and you're moving into where you want to
yeah, so
be.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going full throttle with the coaching and the self-development, helping others. I do have a few projects in the pipeline, one for the end of the year, which I can't reveal, and one which will be announced very, very shortly. Am I allowed to say, or?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want, Alex. Yeah.
So obviously I'm launching a podcast myself, and it will be called Take a Chance on You. It'll be released by the time it comes out, so we'll talk about it now. I'm very nervous though, just said the name. But it's called
Yeah.
but it's called Take a Chance on You, and it's a new podcast where I will be passing the mic to emerging talent. So that could be young voices or people pivoting into careers. It doesn't necessarily have to be cybersecurity. I've already interviewed a few guests in the fashion, marketing, and business space. But the idea is, why are we waiting until we have 30 or 40 years of experience in order to be taken seriously and to be provided a seat at the table? Let's start now. And I want people who are just emerging. They may want to be building their personal brand. They might not have a presence online. They might not be so attuned to networking or collaborating with others. So the idea is they come onto the podcast and it's them talking for 20, 30 minutes. I possibly direct them into different conversations, but ultimately it's them just talking to me about their stories, their challenges, and the challenges are a big one. And we try to come to a solution together and spotlight them out, because I think there's a gap really. And if I look at my journey again, really hard in the beginning, not having so much of a community, having to really fight for what I wanted, I want to try and make it easier for others. And if you're 2 or 3 steps in front of a listener, that listener will take away whatever you've said in terms of resources and be able to propel them forward. So it's just about starting early, telling your story right at the beginning rather than waiting until you've made it, quote unquote, because success happens at every stage of life, not just when you've got £1 million in the bank. I think we need to stop. We need to stop, I don't know, fantasizing about that so much and actually come back down to reality and say, well, you've got a story to tell now.
There's a humanizing aspect of it. I took away from that, but that's really, really exciting. And I'll put that podcast link in the show notes as well, because it'll be out by the time
It will be out. Very, very scary when it comes out.
Very exciting.
That's it, really. I think just more public speaking as well. And as I say, there's something at the end of the year which is kind of the nail on the head to everything I've been working towards. But just more outreach, just talking to people, just getting myself out there, listening, and offering services in any way that I can as well.
I love it. You're just as passionate as me as helping other people. And I love that you are giving people an opportunity to talk about themselves, their journey, and giving them that space, because it's not linear. It is what you make it. And it's not about showcasing the end goal, it's the journey that takes you there. So I'm really excited to listen to the podcast when it's out and to learn and be encouraged by the people in their own journeys. So I've got one last question for you before we finish up today, and I usually end up is just giving, if you've got 3 tips that you can share with people, either that's in cybersecurity or in personal development, just 3 tips that you'd like to share to everyone before we finish up today.
Oh, 3 tips.
Yeah.
I think 3 tips that I would advise. So it's going back to, if you're wanting to understand a little bit more about cybersecurity, but you're not sure where to start, try not to get overwhelmed with all of the different resources online. Possibly attend a conference to help with your networking and collaborations. Pick an area of cybersecurity. So whether it's just fundamentals or you want to learn a little bit more about different roles in cybersecurity, so the careers aspect, or whether you really want to deep dive into different types of threats within the cybercrime ecosystem. So if you're wanting to understand more, just pick an area to begin with. Try not to overwhelm yourself. As I say, linking to the conferences, try and attend a networking event, 1 or 2 every month, to build your personal brand, build your collaborations, but also just to talk to people. And it goes back to your point about you could receive reports of others in person, and that could enhance your learning as well. I think that is a tip in itself. I would say a tip in life take everything as it comes. And as you said, Sooz, with the not letting opportunities pass you by, having that self-belief that you can be a curator of your life, you can decide what you want. If it's in cybersecurity or any industry that you're in, don't think that you need to start early. People change careers later on in life, and 50 is the new 20. So you can just do anything and you can have multiple different careers. But that, as I said before, comes down to understanding a little bit more about your own values, your mission, what your goals are, writing all of that down, maybe doing a little bit of journaling. I'm not necessarily very good at journaling, so I'm going to offer that as a recommendation, but I do not take that advice. But I think just as going back to the beginning, just having a think about who I am as a person, what are my beliefs, what's my value, what's my mission, possibly working with somebody to do that, whether it's a friend, a family member, or a coach. It doesn't, whoever it is, looking, outsourcing to just really help as well. So yeah, I think those are my two main tips. I'm trying to think of a third one. Just go for it. I think just go for it. Don't listen to outsider perspectives. Trust yourself, believe in yourself. You can do anything you want to do. We're in 2025. It's going to be a fantastic year. I think the best year really since COVID, if I'm honest. I feel like this is, we had 2024, which was a bit of a buffer. Now 2025, it's full steam ahead. Do anything you want. If you're happy in your career, great, get promoted. If you're not, pivot, try out new things, meet new people, build a community, get involved in existing communities around you, and just try not to overthink and try not to get overwhelmed. Be a bit more optimistic and see what happens.
I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today, Alex. I'm really hopeful that we'll meet in person at some point. But it's been a privilege to have you on for this Digital Dominator session today. I'm going to share where you can connect with Alex in the show notes. So please go and listen to her podcast. If you're attending a conference and she's speaking at it, go and speak to Alex and just have a look at where you can go in your journey and learn from what Alex is sharing, what Alex is doing. And yeah, thank you. I'm really grateful to have you on today.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, I'll see you next time. Thanks, Alex. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
That's it for this episode of Digital Dominators. If your brain's buzzing and you're ready to keep that digital energy going, come join us at technologycoaching.online. It's the community for small business owners who want to get visible, take action, and grow with the right support around them. Head to technologycoaching.online. I'd love to see you there. And until next time, keep showing up, tackling your tech, and dominating your digital world.